All right, it's a Thursday night. Time for our Las Vegas Tri Club member spotlight. This is going to be a fun one. But
Yeah,
before we get into doing a brief introduction to our guest, I've got to say bonjour to Bob.
bon, bonjour, monsieur.
Yes, Bob is in France, and it's although it's early in the morning there for Bob, it's like 4 a.m. I'm sorry, but I don't feel bad for you. You're
No, it's
enjoying
been
your
good.
croissants and your wine, and that's
Oh
good.
yeah, good
Yeah.
food.
Well, and this is so fitting that this is an international spotlight tonight with you over in France, because our guest tonight, Julie Marshner. Hi, Julie. How's it going?
Good.
And
Yes.
I'm not going to steal Bob's thunder, but Julie has traveled a ton and raced a lot. In fact, I know we raced Zell-MC, Austria. Was that 2015?
15,
Yeah,
15.
2015. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know we didn't cross a lot of our paths at that race, but it's just so neat to see all these different places you've been to
Yeah,
and raced. And so this is going
amazing.
to be a lot of fun. And I think our club is really going to have a sort of an eye opener in terms of all the different places you've been to. So welcome,
Wow.
Julie, and I'm going to turn it over to Bob for the official introduction.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, and welcome, Julie. And thank you so much for doing this. And this is, I'm really looking forward to this because, and for everyone who's watching this or listening, Julie is the most accomplished triathlete that I know as far as for how many she has done. She's done over 75 triathlons, around 35 70.3s, and including her very first triathlon was a 70.3. And I'm going to read this list because I'm not going to remember it if I don't read it. So Julie has done races in Denmark, Sweden, Austria, South Africa, Peru, and Australia. So this is a truly international triathlete here. Julie got started in 2003 with her
Correct.
first Wildflower 70.3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave. So Julie is a forensic scientist working for, who is that again, Julie?
Metro Police Department in the forensic.
Metro,
Yeah.
doing forensic science. So, I mean, this is a very varied and interesting background. So to get started, Julie, you've raced all over the world. What's up with all of your traveling? Tell us about this.
I just have used triathlons as a way to explore new places. It started out doing races in the US, and then I think it was when my first international race was just going to Canada. And then I got a roll down spot in Calgary to do the 70.3 World Championship in Mont Tremblant. And so I
Wow.
broke down and bought like a nice travel case for my bike at that point, and then it was like game on then. So I did two more races in Canada, and then I think went to Austria and then Australia. Did one trip, I did both races in Denmark and Sweden on the same trip. And then that same year I went to South
Well, you're
Africa.
sure you're in the same area, so I might as well
Yeah.
do them both, right?
And
That's
then did
fun.
Peru after that. So
Peru, I didn't even, yeah, I mean, this is showing my ignorance. I didn't even know they did triathlon in Peru. And,
yeah.
I visited there like in 1978, but triathlon wasn't, it wasn't even around yet. So, that's fun. But, do you speak these languages, or how did you manage this?
No, I mean, I took German in high school, but I think I have found that when I've traveled internationally, like a lot of people know English, or you can get by, with like broken English. And
Mhm.
so it's not that daunting to go travel to another country. And I mean, a lot
A
of
lot
these
of,
places I go to by myself. I'm not even with friends or anything, but I feel
a lot
safe
of,
going.
excuse me, a lot of people would disagree with you that it's not that daunting. I mean, to travel all over Europe into countries where you don't speak the language
Just
Yeah.
keeping the
and to
currency
take,
straight is hard.
yeah,
And
that's
I think
just,
it's worth mentioning. It's definitely worth mentioning. Julie just finished Ironman St. George, one of
mhm.
the gruelest Ironman courses uh,
Yeah.
that on the circuit. So that's another great accomplishment.
Yeah. I was happy just to finish that one.
Yeah, that was great. Well, I don't know where to start here.
Exactly. It's
You
like, what
know,
do you say? Which one was your toughest triathlon, or
yeah, yeah.
your first one? But let's go back a little bit. Your triathlon before you got into triathlon, you did sports in high school then?
Like not really competitive. Like I grew up playing soccer. I also played
Soccer.
softball. I did some swimming as a young kid. And then during high school, I did do a couple years of track and cross country. And then when I went to college, I didn't really do much competing or anything. It wasn't until after college that I kind of got into running seriously and then ended up doing triathlons.
Good
Well,
running background is really that'll help you in your longer courses. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
just a solid athlete. I mean, all the different sports like that. I mean, no wonder you gravitated towards triathlon.
Yeah.
what were your events in track?
So I did the half mile and then I would do the quarter mile. And then a couple times I had to do like the mile and the 2 mile. So
And the quarter and the half, I did a half for a little bit. Ran the 880s, and it's not an easy race. It's
no.
a hard one. So you're definitely a runner and as John said, a all around athlete.
Mhm.
So what got you pulled into your first triathlon, given this sport background, and what led you to that?
So I had moved to the Bay Area after college, and I didn't know anyone when I moved there. And so I joined this group called Team in Training,
Hmm.
and they would train people to do endurance events like marathons, triathlons, maybe like a century bike ride. And so I ended up doing 2 marathons with them. And then I had a roommate that had done a triathlon with them. And so then I decided I was going to do a triathlon. And so then the races that I had the chance to choose from was Wildflower, and I could either do the Olympic or I could do the long course, which is a 70.3 distance. And I was like, well, an Olympic, a 10K, like I've done a couple marathons, like a 10K doesn't sound that challenging.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go big and go for the 70.3.
Oh, I
So
love it.
that was my first triathlon.
Oh, wow. Was your roommate doing that as well, that same distance?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, she did it also. So
And oh, well, one, I love to hear you get involved with a group and that, leads you down these paths and then your conversation with the roommate. So now how did you know what, I mean, no, you didn't, this is your first race. Did you have your gear? How did you approach this?
so I mean I bought all the gear, but I mean I started out pretty simple. Like I bought a Cannondale road bike. I think it was like $1,300. It was an aluminum frame. I put on clip-on aero bars. And I mean, I ended up doing my first 2 Ironmans on that bike.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I mean, it was a sturdy bike.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it served me well.
So how long did you prep for that first half Ironman? In essence, an half Ironman.
It was like a 4-month training program that they had us go through. So it was pretty serious.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that was the year that it rained at Wildflower, which is very unusual. And it was an El Nino year in California. And so when we were doing all of our training, every time we had a bike ride that was planned on a day that ended up raining, they would say, oh, we're not going to ride today because it's never going to rain at Wildflower. But then it ended up raining the day of the race. And so that was the first time I ever rode in the rain.
Oh, wow. Now you weren't responsible for the bomb cyclone at Ironman California, were you?
No.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so now you get to the start line. Now this is a big group that was going together, or is it just you and your roommate at this point?
No, it was a big group that they had training for this race. So there was a big group of us that was doing it. Yeah.
So what was race day like?
So I think it was probably raining in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we just went with it and just they did have to adjust the course because a lot of it was on trails on the run. And they didn't want us like going through mud or stuff. So they
Slogging through mud.
Yeah, so they moved some of it onto the roads, but
Okay.
yeah, we still did it.
Now,
And so-
was that intimidating at the starting line, knowing that this was your first triathlon and it was a very long first triathlon?
Not really. I mean, I felt like I had trained really well. I felt like they had prepared us.
I guess
I'm fortunate that like I have little to no anxiety about open water swimming. So like I know a lot of people that's what they get nervous at the start, but like I don't really feel nervous about the swim. So I'm thinking more like long term, like am I going to make it through the day?
Yeah.
So,
And where was the swim? I'm not familiar with Wildflower.
It was
It
at
wasn't an ocean.
No, it's Lake Nacimiento. It's kind of central California, south of San Jose. So.
Okay, it's still open water is open water. So.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so the swim went well,
Yeah.
and you got out. Now that year, what was the transition like to the bike? Was that just a normal transition year?
Yeah, I think so, because it's been so long ago. But
Now
yeah,
you camped out for this race, right? Is that you got to camp out?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like a whole like triathlon festival where everyone camps out all weekend, and they have races on Saturday and Sunday.
What a great entry into the
Mm.
sport. I
Yeah.
can see why you're still doing it. That's just that's such an iconic event. All right, so
Mhm.
now with the rain, I mean, I haven't done this race, so I'm not familiar with it. Was the transition all muddy, or what was that like? Where
No, I want to say we were on like a boat ramp or like a boat parking lot,
Mhm.
so
okay,
that wasn't in the mud. So,
okay.
if I recall, I think the rain ended up, kind of stopping probably like towards maybe like the beginning of the bike. So it really wasn't an issue the entire time. Like the roads were still a little bit wet, but it wasn't like it was pouring down rain the entire time.
Okay, so then you got on the bike and on your trusty Cannondale and took off, huh?
Yeah.
And
those
what was the bike
clip-ons, I remember those clip-ons at that time, they weighed like 1.5 pounds,
Yeah.
so there was there climbing there, or was it flat?
It was kind of rolling, and then there was like one big climb towards the end that you had to do, and then it was like a steep descent after that.
Mm.
So
Oh, were the roads still wet?
I think they had probably dried out pretty
Okay,
much by
good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's ugly. So then you get off the bike after 56 miles.
Yeah.
And what was the run like? How did, you had already trained for that though, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You had good tread.
it was still tough. Like it's a hilly course. Like even though they took out some of the dirt parts, like they still put in plenty of hills for us. So it was still a very tough race to finish.
And
Yeah,
when
well,
go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, what was the longest bike ride you did going into this?
I probably did like a 40 or 50 miler.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Wow. Yeah. I love
Nice
it.
having that athletic background though.
Yeah,
It's
I bet,
obvious that you're such an athlete.
and the confidence that goes with it, that's really neat.
Mhm.
And so the
So
run,
when did you start doing your first international? When did you go then, overseas, or well, you went to
I know
Canada?
my first race in Canada wasn't until 2014. So, I mean, it took me a while, and it was really my friends, like Ted Gerard is a really good friend of mine.
Mhm.
And so he was from Calgary, so he invited me to go up there
no.
to do a race up there. And so then from there on, like we just did a bunch of traveling after that.
All right. Well, hold on. I want to finish on Wildflower
Okay.
because I got a question that I want to ask you on what you recently did too. So give us the rundown on what the finish line was like.
I can't even remember. I think it's so long ago. Like I think I was just glad to be finished. So
So, okay, so then how long after you finished did you say, "Oh, I'm going to do another one"?
I think it was right away. Like I
Really?
did
Oh,
yeah, oh yeah, I did
Wow.
a bunch of sprints that summer. I actually did my first, so I've done Escape from Alcatraz 2 times, and one of them was that
Oh.
first.
nice. Yeah.
So I just went for it.
Oh my goodness, you've done that twice. Wow. That
Tell me something about Alcatraz. Is it true that this is something I heard that they find someone in the a triathlete who is competing who is an attorney, and they send them out to establish professional courtesy with the sharks. I know it's a joke, but it was like I heard that they had actually done that. You don't recall? You don't see that?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
no.
All right.
Well,
And that
I love this. I had no idea you did Escape. I mean, you're doing all these
Alcatraz.
iconic races. This is great. Now, here's my question though, because we went through Wildflower and prepping for that for your first race. You just did Ironman St. George. Can you compare and contrast the training that you did for each of those?
Um, I mean, I would say like now I'm doing a lot more high intensity stuff.
Okay.
And then definitely obviously a lot longer because you're training to do twice the distance.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just about just trying to finish. And like
Mhm.
this time, like I was wanting to do really well and,
Hmm.
wanted to be happy with my finish. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. And I know you trained really hard for St. George, so
Mm.
that's super impressive. So which part of the training do you mostly enjoy then?
Definitely the swimming.
Hmm.
Yeah, I swim with the master swim team here in town, and I've been with them for like 16 years.
Yeah.
So it's just I enjoy going. Like those are my closest friends are on the team. So like, how many adults do you know get to hang out with their friends like 3 days a week? So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
Do you swim at the multi-gen?
No, I swim with Viva Las Vegas Masters, and we swim
Okay.
Pavilion Pool in Summerlin next to Palo Verde High School.
Okay. I want to go back, if you would, you went from a 70.3 and then you did sprints in the summer.
Mhm.
How do you compare those, the 70.3 with the sprints? Completely different races.
Yeah, I mean, the sprints were more just to like try to fit a bunch of races in during the summer, and then just have fun doing them. You know, you don't have to train as hard to do those as you do a 70.3. So it was like I had that great base training after, training for the 70.3. Doing the sprint was just fun after that.
And that's important that, you mentioned the base and how that's important. Then you can go on and do other things as long as you have that, the resiliency in your joints and everything, and you up the intensity.
So
Oh, cool.
let's talk more about this international experience. Again, I'm looking at this list, and we got to include Canada on the international experience. So Canada, Denmark, Sweden, Austria, South Africa, Peru, and Australia. I mean, okay, now if you had to pick one, what was your favorite racecation here?
Oh geez. Like I just have done like really cool things with all the trips. So like when I went to South Africa, I went and stayed on, I don't know what you call it, like a nature preserve, and we did like safaris every day for like 3 or 4 days. On the trip
Wow.
that I went to Peru, I did a week of hiking at Machu Picchu.
Oh,
So I got to see all that. When I went to Australia, I stayed at this eco resort on the Great Barrier Reef and got to go snorkeling with like stingrays and stuff.
oh,
So it's like I've had these great experiences, and it's all because like I've chosen to do a race in this area. Like I don't know that I would take the time, and effort to like plan these trips to just go to these places.
yeah.
But it's like if there's a race there, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in there. Let me find out, what else I can do while I'm there for the race.
I would love to see your passport.
Oh, I know. And you're on your second or third passport by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
All
so
full.
no, I love this. Okay, so now okay, so what race did you do in South Africa?
So I got invited to do the Ironman 70.3 World Championship there in
Oh,
2018. Like I've been incredibly lucky to be doing these, especially like the World Championships. Like I've gotten really lucky with roll downs. Like I'm not particularly fast, but like I have a good performance, and then I go to the roll down ceremony and I get a slot for the World Championship. So
yeah,
it's been a
that's
lot.
great.
And then speaking of the World Championship, you actually you did Kona then as well.
Yeah, I again got lucky. They used to have a lottery that you could enter to be able to do that, and so I won a spot back in 2008, and so I got to do the Kona Ironman back in 2008.
Oh. Well, you say lucky, but I really think it's your athletic ability, and one, you're at the start line, you're getting to the finish line of these races at a really competitive level, and
Yes.
you're in the right spot to get something. So that's really fantastic, because that's what I was thinking is a lot of these are world championship races that you were going to.
Mhm.
All right, so now give some tips for how do you do a racecation. I love this that you were rattling off things you did at each place. So how do you approach it when you say, okay, I'm going to go to Peru? What do you do to prep for that? Not only get ready for the race, but what else do you do for the trip?
So I mean, Peru is kind of different because that one I wanted to go to Machu Picchu. And
Mm,
then, after I made the plans to go to Machu Picchu, I was like, oh, look, there's an Ironman 70.3 here in Lima. So let me go do that.
uh,
But some of the others, like the World Championships, obviously I'm going there to do the World Championship. And so, I make the plans kind of around the race, and then I look for something to do for a few days before so that I have time to adjust to the time zone.
yep,
And then afterwards, it's all about having fun.
yep.
So I just usually look at TripAdvisor for like the top things to see and do, and then kind of work from there.
Well, Julie, you are actually you're living this year's motto, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you're quite enjoying the journey as well as racing.
Yeah.
So that, yeah,
So
that's great.
what are some destinations on your list that you haven't done then?
So I would really like to do New Zealand. I was really, hoping that I could get a spot for the 70.3 World Championship there. So I'll definitely be looking for that. I think in 2024 they'll be hopefully going there. So I'd like to go there, and then definitely do some more races in Europe to see some other countries there.
And speaking of that, you mentioned that you did a trip in France where you actually rode part of the Tour de France.
Yeah.
And
So back in 2010, I did a trip. It was with Trek Travel. And so this was during the last week of the Tour de France. And this was the second year of Lance Armstrong's like comeback when he came back for 2 years. So it was like his last year doing the Tour de France. And so we would ride on the course that they would be racing on. And then they would set up like this big spread for us to watch them then race by us in the afternoon. So it was really cool.
How cool. What were those climbs like? Were they as scary as they look on the TV?
Yeah, they were tough. So I got to go up both sides of the Tourmalet, which is one of the big climbs there. Yeah, and then some crazy descending also coming off of the climbs.
So,
Yeah, I'd be a little afraid going down. Did you do that? Did you take your bike for that, or is that one?
No, Trek Travel had like these really nice Trek bikes that they let us use. So
yeah.
I love it. So along the way, are there little things that you collect, like even stickers or anything about, obviously finisher medals, but
yeah, I usually try to get like one small thing from each country that I do. So I have like little stuff hanging all over the walls in the house. Just kind of remind me of each of these big trips that I've gone on.
Yeah, you've done so many of them in so many different places. You're gonna have to log them, so remember where they came from.
Yeah.
So and you've done races in France. You're on cycling in France. You're gonna do a Nice triathlon or anything? Was that on your list?
I might consider it. Yeah. We'll see.
I understand that's tough, and you're a road. That's for a road course.
Yeah. I think it's got some tough climbing on the bike there. So.
Wow.
All right. So now I know a lot of people, they travel, but not to this extent. Can you give maybe a few travel tips that you've learned along the way, either for international or even national races here in North America?
I mean, if you're willing to like learn how to, pack your bike up in a travel case, I know there are some things like Tri-Bike Transport. Well, they'll take your bike like all assembled to the race, but I've gotten really comfortable taking my bike apart and being able to pack it up and then reassemble it at the race. So I think definitely getting comfortable doing that gave me a lot of independence going to these places by myself.
And what about the time lag? Because that tears people up. I mean, it's 7 or 9 hours between Las Vegas and Europe.
Yeah, I usually do okay. Like usually I try to make it so that my flight gets there kind of in the mid-afternoon, and I force myself to get outside into the sunshine to adjust kind of to their daytime hours, and then just make sure that I'm getting to bed early each night, and then to hopefully catch up in a couple days. But I usually am not that affected by the time change when I travel.
And that must speak to your athleticism too, because it takes a lot of people a long time, a week to turn around that rhythm, that sleeping rhythm.
Yeah.
That's just so amazing and so impressive. You can do that. Just let's go to Europe and do a triathlon.
Yeah.
Well, South Africa, that takes like a week to get there, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was like almost a full day of travel. That was a long flight. I think I watched like 5 movies on that plane because I couldn't sleep, so I just stayed up the whole time.
That's a tough trip. All right, so I just lost my question. It was on.
I was going. Go ahead. Do you have it now?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say. So, what is in your future? You've already done more than most people ever will in their triathlon career. So, what do you have planned for 2022?
So the immediate future, I'm going to be doing the inaugural Ironman Alaska. Again, this is a place that I've always wanted to visit. So of course, Ironman added a race there and I couldn't resist not doing it. So
I couldn't go to Alaska and not race.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And you've got a place to stay, or are you staying at someone's house? I saw the article today that they're encouraging locals to
Yeah.
let people stay with them.
Yeah, I reserved my hotel like right after I registered, and it seemed like people that waited like a day to kind of get their plans together missed out. So it was like if you didn't do it right away, it's going to be tough to find a place to stay.
Oh, that's going to be beautiful. And it will not be a hot race like St. George, right?
No, hopefully not. Yeah.
Of course,
Better
you
not.
don't know with the climate change right now. You don't know, you'll probably get there. It'll be 85 degrees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
When is that race, Julie?
I think it's like August 7th.
Cool, cool.
All right. So you've done sprints, halves, fulls. Which distance do you tend to gravitate towards?
Probably the 70.3s.
Yeah.
You know, I like the challenge of the training. You know,
Mhm.
you have to put in some pretty serious training for those.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the race is still pretty enjoyable to do without kind of totally wrecking your body.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's true when you
And,
do.
and while you mention that, how much recovery do you have after you do a full Ironman? I mean, because you've done so many of them, I just want to know, how long it takes
So, I
you
mean,
to get ready
I
for the
took a
next.
full week off after St. George. I finally got back on the bike on Sunday, and I've done a couple runs and a swim. So yeah, usually like
But
a
that's
week.
still pretty fast
Yeah,
turnaround.
yeah.
Mhm. All right. So now, of all these different places and events and world championships, looking back, what do you look at? Maybe your proudest moment that you've had.
Um, I would say probably all of my Ironman finishes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a grueling race, and I know like the training is like so much harder than the race itself.
Yeah.
And it seems like every time before I'm going to start an Ironman, like I just kind of get emotional thinking like I've worked so hard to get here.
Yeah.
I just hope that this day goes well.
Yeah.
And so I've been fortunate, you know, that I've been able to finish all 8 that I entered.
Nice.
And then just to be able to finish that is just such an accomplishment.
That is, and yeah, that red carpet that always is special on each one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
So-
and the sense of accomplishment has got to be phenomenal, especially you've done so many of them recently.
Yeah.
So what keeps you motivated to do this? Is it the travel? Is the races? I mean, this is really an impressive career that you've had over really about 20 years.
Yeah. It's been 19 years. I mean, I think definitely, you know, I think I've been traveling pretty extensively for the last 8 years, and like it becomes like a good goal. Like pick a race in kind of an exotic place or a place that you've always kind of wanted to go, and then work towards getting there. So, yeah. And I enjoy the training. Like I like swimming, biking, and running. I like, you know, having something to do regularly. Keep me active. So.
And I know you've got a little puppy there. So how much does your dog travel with you on these?
So anytime I can drive to a race, I will definitely try to take her.
Yeah.
Even races that I go by myself, like I'll find a place to board her the night before the race.
Yeah.
And then just pick her up as soon as I'm done. So then she can come on the rest of the trip with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Julie, do you do local races? You do the BBSC?
I haven't so much lately, but I used to do a lot of them, especially when like I was only doing like an Ironman and maybe like 170.3 a year. I would usually do a couple of the BBSC races too. But now like, I'm usually doing like 3 to 4 70.3s a year. So I usually mainly just do those now.
Yeah, right. Okay. Just wondering how you like the local races compared to the traveling.
I mean,
You like
great
it's obvious you like to travel so much.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what you look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if Lake Mead keeps getting lower, we'll all be doing a lot more traveling.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a favorite course that you've done? Like one
I
that
would
really
probably
sticks out?
say the Victoria 70.3 up in British Columbia. So I'm not a huge fan of running in the sun, and I would say that run course is probably 90% in the shade, and a lot of it is on trail. So it's just a really pretty run course. I really like that course.
Oh,
okay.
Man.
Now I'm not sure if John wanted to go here yet, but I'm interested. There are so many new people in our club right now, and you are so experienced. What would you know, what advice would you give to the newcomers here that would watch this?
I would say like don't be afraid to just start out with like the basic gear. Like you don't need to have the top of the line bike. Like I mentioned, I did my first 2 Ironmans on a road bike with clip-on aero bars. Back then, at least I didn't have them. I didn't have a power meter. You know, GPS wasn't a thing then. I didn't use a heart rate monitor. Like I just used my, you know, little mini bike computer that told me how far I went and how fast I went.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a lot of gear if you're just looking to finish a race. So
Yep.
That is really great advice because it can be intimidating. And but it's so neat. Julie, I am just so floored with all this this experience that you've had, and I'm a little jealous too. This is really quite an impressive list of places you've gone to. I'm so glad that you've joined us, and not only are you a great athlete, but it's just neat to hear all these different places you've been to. And
Yeah, that's inspirational that you will go to.
I'll steal
You'll
what
go to
Bob's.
another.
Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. That
I
you
was
you
gonna-
go to a place and you pack so much into it. It's like,
mhm.
oh, I'm going to do an Ironman. I'm going to walk, you know, hike Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
That's not, people don't really put those two things together in the same sentence very often.
No,
Yeah.
you are
Ever.
definitely the poster triathlete for enjoy the journey.
Yeah, a good way to put it.
Yeah, Julie, thank you so much for joining. This has been fantastic. I love your background too, all the medals, and just describe what you did there in case people are trying to get some ideas.
So I use hot glue gun magnets on the back of them. And so then that's like a piece of sheet metal that's mounted on a piece of wood. And so then they're all just stuck up on there with magnets.
That's
So then
awesome.
as I need to add more, like I can move them around so they
That's
aren't
great.
like permanently stuck in one place.
I love it.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
cool. That's a
Julie,
good way to
thanks so
display
much,
those.
and we can't wait to see you do Alaska, and I can't wait to see the pictures.
Thanks for having me.
Very good.
All right, thanks.